Yeah, do you know the difference between a videographer and a cinematographer? What do you call yourself when people ask? I'm guessing that you're here because you do shoot video, that's why you clicked on the thumbnail and the title, but what do you call yourself? Do you call yourself a cinematographer? Do you call yourself a videographer? But what's the work that you actually do day to day? Is it congruent with what you call yourself? I feel like this is a problem. There's a clarity issue here, and I want to talk about that in this video. If you're new here, I'm Cinematographer. I've been a cinematographer for the last 15 years, and I've worked with brands like Adidas, T-Mobile, ESPN, and Google, and I've shot 2 full-length feature films. And in this video, I want to get into this a little bit. You know, I just called myself a cinematographer. That is what I try to call myself when people ask me, but it's tricky sometimes to be clear. So let's break down real quick. Let's talk about the differences between the two maybe. And of course, the title only means so much, but it's about commitment. It's about what we really want to be, and are we taking the actions to actually do that role, right? So videographer, let's start there. We're just gonna do like a video column and a cine column. How about that? A videographer probably, you know, doesn't get a lot of time on set. They're probably someone doing social videos or direct-to-client projects or something that doesn't have the biggest budget, right? And so let's just say they don't get, let's see, like 1 to 3 hours on set. And then a cinematographer, well, they're probably gonna get, you know, they're actually, it's not are they gonna get, like they're probably working 10 to 12 hours on set, okay? 10 to 12 hours. Probably should have made this like a circle here, right? And then let's think about the videographer as well. A lot of videographers are probably having to kind of plan the shoot, maybe even edit. You know, a lot of videographers are positioned in this kind of like one-stop shop position, kind of acting as like a little agency. So we're gonna say, wears many hats. Excuse my handwriting here. Maybe let's fix this one here. This R is a bit silly. Wears many hats. Whereas a cinematographer is really like positioned in that one role, and on some sets may get in trouble if they kind of, you know, unlike union sets, like if you're in one lane, if you kind of lean into someone else's lane, they might get onto you about it. So we'll say one hat, right? And then something else a videographer might do. Let's talk about like their camera for a second. Their camera is probably something, well, maybe not the camera, but the style of shooting, right? They're probably going to be more run and gun, right? Run and gun. You know, not, you know, probably working with no crew. They're by themselves. They're a one-person shooter. No crew. And then, you know, with that, so they're only getting the 1 to 3 hours to shoot. They are having to wear many hats. They're run and gun, so they're trying to get as many shots as they can. They're trying to capture an event, capture something in the moment as it happens, as it's unfolding. And you don't really need crew for something like that. Whereas if you're over on the cinematographer side, it's gonna be more not run and gun, but let's say intentional. And there's going to be crew. With crew. Now, these are already some pretty major differences, right? Maybe camera wise, if we wanted to get a little more granular here, the videographer is probably working with autofocus, you know. They might be working with, you know, zoom lenses. Whereas the cinematographer might have a zoom lens if it was intentional for the project, but they're also going to be probably mostly working with primes, because primes make you intentional. They keep that intention. So we'll say prime lenses. Getting used to this new Apple Pencil here. This is the first time I'm trying this kind of approach here. And it's going to be has camera assistant. This list is getting longer. The next thing is, you know, the videographer is trying to capture something in the moment. So they're having to like improvise, come up with the shots, find a good composition. We'll say find frames. Whereas the cinematographer is going to design frames, right? They're going to do all that work ahead of time. They're going to have an intention, an inspiration, an idea of what they're trying to create, and they're going to go in there maybe with already coming up with a lighting plan, a composition plan, a color plan, right? And a lot of times the videographer is kind of, maybe there's not really a director, maybe they're just like capturing the thing, so they're just like dropping off footage, or they just have to edit something later. So maybe no director. Maybe no director. But we'll say with the cinematographer, you're going to have a director. All right, I'm running out of room on this page here. Oh, we can scroll down here. So the list is getting long. So you're kind of getting the point here, right? Do you see the kind of differences between the two? We've got less time as a videographer, wears more hats, which is also going to give you less time. Run and gun versus intentional. No crew versus with crew. Autofocus versus prime and manual lenses. Camera assistant pulling focus for you versus the autofocus. Finding frames versus designing frames. No director versus has director. Maybe even has creative, right? Like the cinematographer is usually going to be in the position to have creative, whether that's a narrative project, a commercial project, or something of the like. You're getting the idea here. Now, I think when we get into this, we're like, oh, I wanted to get into this because I want to be a cinematographer. And then this is how you start out. You start taking whatever jobs you can. You just want to start making images. You want to get your hands on cameras. And that's kind of where you end up in this videography role. But then at some point, you might get stuck there. You might need the money to pay the bills. Or now the only type of work you're attracting is that videographer work, right? Because that's the work that you've been doing. And so now that's what people are going to think of you as. Even though you're calling your cinematographer, you're putting cinematographer in your Instagram bio, you're putting DP in your Instagram bio or on your website, but you're still getting hired for those videography type jobs, right? So that's when it comes down to this choice. You have to make a choice. You have to pick a lane of what you actually want to be. You have to say, is it time? Is it time to become a cinematographer? I want to design, I got into this so I could design my images. So I can make something I'm proud of. I can manipulate. I didn't even put in here lighting versus no lighting. Here, let's just add that at the bottom here, because I feel like that's important. Has lighting. Now, you might have some lighting as a videographer, but you might be showing up with one or two lights, right? We'll say less lighting. There's plenty of times though where I'm sure that a videographer does not have lighting, right? But yeah, you gotta, so that goes back to the point. You gotta pick a lane. You wanna have lights, you wanna have the prime lenses, you wanna have the cinema camera, which we also didn't put down here, right? Because camera doesn't matter that much. You gotta pick one. You gotta pick one and you have to present that one to the world, right? You can't just keep taking any job that comes to you, because you're going to, and I say this all the time, but if you do one, let's say, we're going to say one wedding gig, you're going to get 2 more weddings. That's just how it works. That's how word of mouth works. That's what you're presenting to the world. So at some point you have to sort of fake it till you make it. You have to create some images that you're proud of, and you need to use those to promote yourself as a cinematographer and not as a videographer. And if you're doing some videography work and you don't want everyone to see it, you just don't have to you don't have to tell them about it. You don't have to show it to them, right? Only show off the cinematography work. And then really at some point you're gonna have to start turning down those videography jobs. You really need to commit. You need to have clarity. Pretty much anything in the world right now, and especially with just the chaos and the noise, you need to have clarity about who you are and what you do. Clarity is going to give you it's going to be the best for communication and for attraction, right? Can't go out there saying that you're, 5 different roles. I've seen this before. I've seen people in their Instagram bios and etc. In other social medias, they're like, oh, I'm a cam op. Oh, I'm a gaffer. Oh, I do drones, yada, yada, yada. Well, like people, that's confusing for people. Ideally you pick one thing and you get really good at it. Now, it's okay to accept those other jobs, or it's okay to be like, I show up as a cinematographer, but now you need a drone shot. Well, it's okay. I've got a drone license, I've got a drone in the truck, but you don't have to say that you're a drone op, because if you do that, people are only going to think of you as a drone op. Early in my career, I was able to get the jobs I got because I committed. I committed to the lane that I wanted to be in. I turned down a lot of jobs at first that were not in the space I wanted to be in. I did the videography jobs, and then at some point I said no more. I shot a couple weddings when I first started when I was like 20, and I was like, I can't do these anymore because people are going to keep calling me for them, right? And this has been like a common denominator of mine. Knowing when to say yes and knowing when to say no has really helped string together my career. And I suggest that for other people, right? And this is what I talk about in my coaching program all the time. This is really like the backbone of the coaching program, is creating that lane, presenting that lane, creating images for that lane, and then making the work, if you don't already have it, to attract more work that you want to be doing, finding your style, then making images that reflect that style, which will then attract directors and projects that need that style for their project or for whatever they're trying to make, right? This is what it's about. It's about that clarity. So I hope this helped you with your clarity. If not, maybe it's just a little reminder of trying to hold on to that clarity, because you can't just call yourself a bunch of different things and expect it all to work out. Okay. You need to call yourself what you are, or you need to go out there and start becoming the thing that you want to be, and then positioning yourself as such. And if you're interested in working with me on that, if you want some coaching along with that, just click the link in the description below and we can chat about that. And I can do my best to help you on that journey. Okay. That's it for me. As always, guys, I'm such a Sakurai. Peace.